Good morning. Whether you are joining us online or here in the sanctuary, welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. My name is Ed Prue, and I am a guest speaker here today. It is a privilege and a joy for me to join you today in this wonderful place that I've heard so much about. I have heard that you are a spiritual community dedicated to a free and responsible search for truth, meaning, and beauty. Is that true? Yes, it is. I especially want to welcome you here if you are new to the church. If you are with us on the live stream, please feel free to say hello in the comments section and let us know where you are viewing the service from. If you are with us here in person, we invite you to join us for coffee and conversation after the service. We welcome a long tradition of seeking a spark of the divine in every person. It's in that tradition that I invite you to greet the holy amongst you and amongst us, either in the comments online or by simply turning to those around you here in the sanctuary to greet the holy amongst you this morning. We would like to light our chalice. Go ahead and light our chalice this morning. But before I do that, I'd like to especially thank my friends, Reverend Chris, who is just so wonderful, who you are so lucky to have, I think, right? Right? And Reverend Aaron, who I haven't seen in a long time, but it was so wonderful for you. They heard I would be passing through, and they offered me this opportunity to talk at this church that I've heard so much about for so many years. It was just so imaginary that I was beginning to think that maybe it didn't exist. It was just some sort of fairy tale. But it is such a wonderful place, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And I invite Peter to help light our chalice this morning as we read our chalice lighting words together, which will appear for you. This is the flame we hold in our hearts as we strive for justice for everyone. This is the light we shine on systems of oppression until they are no more. This is the warmth that we share until we start. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Peter Langlois. I've been a member of First UU for about 15 years, and I use the pronouns he, him. Our call to worship this morning is by the Reverend Tanya Yadira Marquez, she, Ea, an ordained UU minister, spiritual director, and hospital chaplain in San Diego, California, whose ministry is influenced by her immigrant and fronteriza experiences. It is a wonder and mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of time, in the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe at the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, and more loving. May our hearts and minds be open to this offering. I'm so glad you're here. Let us worship, let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now and the mystery that has brought us together. Now please rise in body and/or spirit to sing hymn number 16 in the gray hymnal, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple."
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning will come round right.
And now I invite you to affirm your mission statement, one of the most important things you do every Sunday. You remind yourselves why you're here and what you are doing here. I invite you to do that with me now. Together, we nourish souls, transform lives, and do justice to build the beloved community.
They say you gotta choose your side, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. It ended in a great big fight, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. Conflict each and every day, at home and in the streets, in my soul every way. It's hard to keep the faith when I feel so far away. Things I feel connected, times I'm running away. But whoa, can't you see all the sickness, hunger, and poverty? War on the land and war on the seas. Whoa, war is a painful thing, but one argument none of us can't hide is the one that's raging down deep inside, trying to make a point or have the last word, but most of the time people just trying to be heard. They say you gotta choose your side, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. It's ended in a great big fight, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. How many people never ever broke a rule, and how many people trying to get their kids to school, and how many people pray they only find a job, and how many people are afraid of getting robbed. But whoa, nobody knows, and whoa, only God knows. Numbers calculate Wall Street's crime rate, from the Baghdad streets to my city by the bay. They say you gotta choose your side, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. It ended in a great big fight, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong. Can you say what you mean? Can you mean what you mean, what you say? Can you say what you mean? Can you mean when you mean when you say every single day? Whoa, reach out a hand to somebody who lives ahead, and reach out a heart to somebody taught torn apart. It's hard, this living, this life we've been given. Locked in your soul or locked up in prison. Remember, you gotta reach high to be risen. The day you let go is the day you're forgiven. But they say you gotta choose your side, and when it's done, nobody right, nobody wrong, nobody right now, nobody right, nobody wrong. And I say, one man got a jet fighter and the other one got a song. Nobody right, nobody wrong.
Before we go to the story, can I tell you that I've asked about 8 churches to sing that song. And 2 have done it. You were one. And I wish I'd recorded that. That was just beautiful. I think Michael Franti would love it. Oh, that was just great. Thank you. The other one that did it with a bluegrass band, banjo and all. I walked into the church, I'm like, what? That's a rap song. You're going to do a rap song with a banjo. Whatever turns you on, man, right? Oh, now we're going to do the story. Okay, so do we have anybody who do we come up for the story? Is that what we do? We do? Anybody going to come up for the story? I don't bite on Sunday. This is a very, very old story. This story is so old that we don't even know how old it is. Is that amazing? And I think you've heard the story before, too. Have you ever heard the story of the shepherd boy and the wolf? Yeah, I know it's an old one. I'm going to try to tell it a little differently. You have a wolf. You actually have, look, she's got a wolf. It's not a wolf, it's a dog. Oh, I'm sorry. Looks like one. So, this story is super, super old. I'm going to tell a story, okay? So once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a village, and there was a boy who was about 12 years old, and this boy got a very important job in this village. This job was very important. This boy had to keep watch over the sheep, because the sheep were very important to the people that lived in the village. They made clothes from the sheep. They used milk from the sheep. They made cheese from the sheep. They did all kinds of things from the sheep. The sheep were very, very important. But the problem is right next to where the sheep stayed, there was a forest, and in the forest were some wolves sometimes, and sometimes the wolves would grab the sheep and take them away. So this was not good. So they asked this boy to go out and watch these sheep. So he did. A shepherd. You've heard that before? I know, it's not, yeah, I know, it's not a great story. You've all heard it. So, here's the deal, okay? So, this is a great job, and this is an honor for this boy to have this job. But, it's really boring, because sheep are boring. So the boy is out in the field with the sheep all day, all the time, and even sometimes at night, so he gets really bored. So one day he remembers that the people in the village said to him, if you ever see a wolf coming to get the sheep, just start yelling, wolf, wolf, and we'll all come from the village and we'll help you get rid of the wolf. So the boy was bored, you see. So the boy said, you know what? It might be fun to get some people out here. So you know what I'm going to do? What do you think he said he was going to do? He's going to say wolf. So the next morning, he did. That's exactly. So the next morning, he said, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm bored today. I'm super bored today. So I'm going to say wolf. So he went out and he started yelling wolf. And everybody in the village, they dropped everything they were doing and they picked up all their tools and they ran out and they ran out and they ran out. And when they got there, the boy was sitting in the field laughing because he was having fun. He wasn't bored, right? But the people in the village, what do you think the people in the village thought about that? Yeah, they were mad. They were not happy. You're right about that. So they said, what'd you do that for? And he's laughing. And they said, that's not a very nice thing for you to do. No, no. So he felt, don't give away the future. Hold on. So the boy who cried wolf, right. So a little bit later, a few days later, a few weeks later, so he felt bad, the boy. But he was still pretty bored because sheep didn't get any more exciting. So after a while, what do you think he did? He did it. This guy knows my gig here, right? You do too, yeah. So he did it again. So let's yell it together. He said, "Whoa!" And out came the villagers again, and they came out, and there was no wolf, and the boy was laughing and laughing and laughing, and the villagers were even madder this time, right? But this time he said, I promise I'm never, ever, ever going to do it again. Until 3 weeks later, when he was bored again, he did it again. And this time when he yelled wolf, what happened? They didn't come. Why did they not come? But what was the difference this time? I don't even have to tell this story. What was the difference this time? There actually was a wolf, but the people in the village just really didn't like this kid anymore, right? So they didn't come out to help him, and they ended up losing sheep. The boy had to take care of it himself, and he did take care of himself. But what do you think the boy learned? Now, the lesson that everybody likes to say about this is don't lie, but why not lie? Why is lying bad? Do people like people who lie?
No, if you lie too many times, they don't believe you the next time.
Yeah, that's one of the tips. Yes, ma'am.
Like if you lie one time and you have the same thing, then they won't help you because they'll just think you're lying.
Yeah, well, and they don't believe you anymore. They don't like you anymore. They're not willing to help you, right? So was that a good story? I know it was old and you told it for me, but was that a good story?
But now the villagers now are the lost sheep.
Yeah, see? You got it. All right, so you all are going to class today, right? You all are going to your groups? Well, I hope you have a wonderful time. This is the time in our service where we center ourselves together. We breathe together. We take a moment and we just breathe. And when we breathe together, we sense one another's loving presence. Breathing in, breathing out, we follow our breath to a place deep inside, a place of greater wisdom, a place where the spark of the divine resides within each of us. Breathing together, we enter into a time of sacred silence together. We pause for a moment of silence. We all carry sorrows, joys, hopes, and remembrances with us. They fill this room. We now invite you to take a moment and allow them to be with us in this room by lighting a candle. If you feel so moved, please feel free to bring these joys, these hopes, and remembrances into the room with us at this time.
Our reading this morning is in our gray hymnal and is without attribution. But with a little digging around, you will find that it was extracted from a longer poem by William Arthur Ward, who was an American author and motivational speaker who lived from 1921 to 1994. Excuse me. These words are entitled, "To Risk." To laugh is to risk appearing a fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas and dreams before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. He may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he cannot learn, feel, change, grow, or live. Chained by his servitude, he is a slave who has forfeited all freedom. Only a person who risks is free.
Wonderful to be with you here today, this morning. I used to be an itinerant preacher. I'd go from church to church in South Carolina, and North Carolina, and Georgia. I did that for about 10 years while I was going through seminary. And I'm not going to say I never got any pushback on things I said, but of all the things I said, this is the thing that I said that I got the most pushback on. And I'm going to say it to you right now. And it's going to feel, for some of you, like I'm asking you to walk around with your shoes on the wrong feet. Okay? It's a funny feeling. But hold with me, stay with me, all right? I used to say this. I still say it. It is better to be loved than it is to be right. I can feel some of you tensing up, right? It is better to be loved than it is to be right. And then, through the process of saying that, someone brought to my attention that apparently Dr. Wayne Dyer said something similar. Do you remember Dr. Wayne Dyer? Yeah, he died a few years ago, right? But he said, when given a choice between being right and being kind, choose kind. Now, where'd the pushback come from? Let me just clarify some of the things that I didn't say. I didn't say that being wrong is all right. Right? I didn't say that. I also didn't say that facts don't matter to nice people. And I also didn't say that being loved is the same as being nice. Because sometimes being nice is not very nice. We know this, right? Also, kind and nice are not always the same thing, are they? Right? So I didn't say those things. Those are the things that I didn't say. What I said was, it's better to be loved than it is to be right. And I still believe that to this day. And I'm going to give you, for those of you who need everything to be pragmatic, I'm going to give you a very pragmatic reason for this. Okay? It goes back to the story. You can be as right as you want to be. If nobody likes you, doesn't help that you're right. You have some comfort in being right, but if nobody, the being right doesn't help anybody. It doesn't make the world a better place. It's not a practical thing. The other thing is to make yourself open to being loved. This is a difficult thing for some people. Make yourself open and available. This is a very difficult thing for some people. But to do it is a sign of strength. The strong are able to, or the emotionally strong, the emotionally open, are able to open themselves up in a way that really enables them to connect with people. This, I think, is the underlying problem with the story that the boy who cried wolf. We tell our kids that the story of the boy who cried wolf is about lying. I don't think it's really about lying. I think it's about having people like you, right? The problem, the reason why we don't lie, is what I told the kids, was the reason why we don't lie is because when you lie to someone enough times, do you like people who lie to you? No, of course you don't. So why would you think that people would like you if you lie to them? When you take this and multiply it times a village, times a country, times a city, times a universe, you can see that we have forgotten as individuals and as a society how to prioritize being loved over being right. We have chosen right over being loved over and over and over again. And this has led to a total, almost total breakdown of communication on an individual level, on a collective level, and on a societal level. We see this, right? We see that this brand of news, if you watch the news on two different channels, you'd think you were watching two separate movies, right? Living in two separate countries. And this is starting, I think it started a long time ago, but I think it's really starting to have a visible effect right now. And I'd like to bring you through a little tour of some of the events, the recent events in our lives where this is manifesting itself, so you can see what this inability to talk to each other actually looks like in real life. Because it's easy to imagine it in words. It's harder to imagine it. What does that look like in real life? So we're going to go through a little tour. We're going to start with small, and the groups are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go through this, okay? So the first stop on our tour is Newport News, Virginia. In Newport News, Virginia, a 6-year-old boy brought a gun to school with the intent purpose of killing his teacher. Have you heard that story? The school district has only issued one statement on this, and the one statement was, it was not an accident. He didn't bring it for show and tell and accidentally shoot the teacher. He intentionally brought the gun to school to shoot the teacher. So let's look at the breakdown of communication here. You have the communication between the boy and the teacher. You have the communication between the teacher and the parents, and you have the communication between the parents and the boy. I don't think anyone in this conversation was talking to each other. I don't think anybody knew. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances with this particular thing, but we see this often. This is disturbing, that this is what happens. This is what happens when we can't talk to each other, or when we can, but we choose not to, right? The only statement the parents made was that they support gun training for children. It's the only statement that the parents made. This is a 6-year-old boy with a 9mm. You ever shoot a 9mm? The recoil will blow the gun right out of your hand. When I was 12, I shot it for the first time. This kid's 6, and he shot the gun twice. So this was not the first time this kid has held this gun, right? So that's our first example of what happens when conversations can't happen, when breakdowns happen. And we're going to go from the small, we're going to go a little bit bigger now. Now we're going to go to Memphis. And we all know what happened in Memphis. In Memphis, what underlied what happened in Memphis was that they gave the community what they wanted. They did not give the community what they needed. They used power over to do this, right? We're talking about, of course, Tyree Nichols. But I'm not necessarily talking about Tyree Nichols. I'm talking about what happened that resulted in Tyree Nichols. So first, what you have to know about Tyree Nichols, and you know, I know you all read the news. You all are well aware of the news. Tyree Nichols was a 29-year-old black man. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall, and here's what you don't know. He weighed 145 pounds. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall, and he weighed 145 pounds, right? He had Crohn's disease. This is not a well man. He had a 4-year-old son. And I'd also like to read into the record here the people on the other victims involved in this awful crime. The policemen. So the policemen were put on a unit called the Scorpion Unit, which was called Scorpion. This was the name of the unit, by the way, Scorpion, right? So right on the top. This isn't the Boy Scouts. Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. It was a street crimes operation. They were at least honest. They created a band of policemen that looked an awful lot like a gang. To Darius Bean, he was 24 years old. His police experience before being put on this very selective team was 1 year, 4 months. Demetrius Haley, he was 30. His police experience was 1 year, 4 months, but he was a prior corrections officer. Emmett Martin, he was 30. He is 30. His police experience was 2 years, 9 months. Desmond Mills, he's 32. And his police experience was 3 years, 9 months. And then Justin Smith, he's 28, and his police experience was 2 years, 9 months. So the most experienced police person on this force was 3 years, 9 months. This does not sound like something you create to fix a problem, does it? This is a bunch of junior people that were sent out to solve a problem that they were probably ill-equipped to solve. And then the last one that was fired later, his name was Preston Hemphill. He was disciplined twice in his 1 year as a policeman before being put on the Scorpion team. They gave the people what they wanted. They did not enter into a conversation with the community. They did not enter into conversation with other police departments. They just gave the people what they wanted. They wanted this roving SWAT team with no rules. And that's what they got. And it cost Tyree Nichols his life. Another example of how the breakdown happens when we can't talk to each other. Now we're going to go from Memphis to Long Island. Long Island, the 3rd Congressional District of Long Island, with its new representative, Mr. George Santos, who, if you watch late night TV, you are well acquainted with. What happened? How did we get to George Santos, folks? This is a larger group now, right? We've gone from the small to a larger group, Memphis. Now we're going to a whole congressional district on Long Island. How did we get there? George Santos, I have to tell you, was brilliant. He told the red team what they wanted to hear. He told the blue team what they wanted to hear. And he knew they'd never talk to each other, so they'd never check it out. He literally gave different lies to different groups of people, which is what makes him so funny on late night television. But this dude's in Congress, folks. Talk about not being able to talk to each other. He knew that he lied to different groups in the same day. We can't talk to each other, so we don't know what each other is thinking. And we end up with George Santos. And God knows how many others. I don't even know. I just took a particular interest in this George Santos fellow because it was just so riveting what he did. It bordered on brilliant what he did, really. He just completely saw this hole that we created for ourselves, and he saw it as a hole so big he could drive a truck through it, and that's exactly what he did. He drove his George Santos truck right through that hole, and we're suffering for it. Now let's go to the biggest one. And there are more. These are just 4 examples. The biggest one, we're going to go to London. We're going to look at Brexit. Brexit is the same story, folks. Everybody just saying whatever they want to say. And if we can get to half plus 1, we're going to do it. And that's what they did. They got to half plus 1 because they told one side one thing and another side the other thing, and they each blew their dog whistles, and nobody knew what anybody was saying. And now we've got an entire continent starting to break apart. There are other countries that are looking at Brexit now and saying, well, we want to do it too. So you take what took 40 years to get unity together is now being broken apart, and the foundation of what's breaking it apart is the fact that we can't talk to each other. How silly is that? We are all great at talking to each other, aren't we? But when the stakes get high, we have a problem with this. And there's so much stuff underlying Brexit, right? There's race, there's isolationism, there's white superiority, there's British superiority. It's a very complex topic, but it was allowed to fester and germinate and just putrefy in this dish of not being able to talk to each other. So how can we possibly be a force for good in the face of all of this? You hear it every week at churches like this one, at Unitarian Universalist churches like this one. It's in our blood, it's in our DNA. I don't know if you've ever heard anybody here, I'm sure you have. If I know Aaron and Chris, I'm sure you have heard people say that we need to engage in the work of widening and deepening and strengthening our circle of belonging. We've heard the circle of belonging, right? Right? Well, you don't widen, strengthen, and deepen your circle of belonging by not talking to people, do you? It's impossible to do that. We have to very simply, and this is hard, I get it, I'm one with you, right? We have to listen a lot more than we talk. It's hard, especially when people are saying some stuff, right? It's hard. Yes, that's exactly what happened. But you have to stay there with them, right? I hear what you're saying, and it's hard because some people say some awful things, awful, but you're never going to change their mind if you're not talking to them. That's what you are. That's what each one of you are. You're the antidote. You're the vaccine. You're the vaccine that go in and say, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I heard that awfully racist, homophobic, transphobic, that awful thing that you just said. I hear what you're saying. And rather than saying, I'm not talking to you anymore because of that awful thing you said, now we're not talking to these people whose minds clearly need to be changed. Right? So we believe their minds need to be changed, and yet what do? It's hard. It's super hard, right? And then the other thing I'm going to tell you to do, and this is going to be the hardest thing to do for a lot of you, rely less on facts than on relationships. Whew, that's a tough one, right? Oh, facts. I like facts. Because facts ain't got nothing to do with me. Right? Facts are easy. If I say personally, it's a different thing now, right? This is very, very hard, and it takes a strength of will. It takes a remarkable strength of will, especially in the face of some of the evil that we see. In the face of Tyree Nichols, in the face of this 6-year-old boy who brought a gun to school. Can't be mad at the boy, but the parents? Yikes. Right? It's so easy to be indignant. It's so easy to be angry. But our faith calls us to stay with it and stay in the conversation. You are the antidote. And this place is the place where you derive your strength to do that work, to deepen, to widen, to strengthen your circle of belonging. Because you're better with a wider and deeper and stronger circle of belonging. I'm better. We're all better for it. It's hard to see sometimes, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And this community, we will restore this community of nations, of cities, towns, of communities, of schools. We will restore this community because of this community. This is it right here. I know it's hard to see sometimes. It's just church. It's just church, right? But this is it. This is where the magic happens. And I believe that Unitarian Universalist churches specifically are the place where this happens. So I empower you. I empower you with love. I empower you with all of my hope and wishes for you and for a greater community and for a greater Austin to go out and just sometimes don't talk. And listen. It's really, really hard. And don't rely on facts. Yes, that is exactly what happened. I believe you now. And stay in relationship with as many people, as icky as it may feel. Stay in relationship with them, because that is how we will change this place back to that beloved community we want it to be. Amen? Amen. Amen. And now I invite you to sing with me a very conspicuously chosen hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace is right us, hope inside us, we lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak it for thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace is right us, hope inside us, we lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard nights.
This place thrives and this place lives through your support of this congregation, through your financial, through your time, and through your love. We now offer you the opportunity to contribute to this congregation. If you are online, there are ways to deliver online, and if you are in the room, the ushers will come around and collect your contributions at this point. Thank God for Peter. They have asked me to read a few announcements for you, and I will do the best I can. If these don't make any sense, talk to Erin. Visit the Green Sanctuary table in Howson Hall after the service. Lots of information on climate, water, and energy savings, gardening for birds and butterflies, and much more. That's in Howson Hall. Also at 12:45 today, here in the sanctuary, former City Council member Laura Morrison will be a guest at our first ever Public Affairs Forum since COVID. All right. Are we clapping for Laura or the Public Affairs? Oh, fine, okay. Her topic is electric transportation. The time is now. Join us to see where Texas stands as we move faster forward toward more electric vehicles. Yes, more electric vehicles. It's F-U-U-C-A. I'm assuming we don't pronounce the... Okay. The silent auction is back, and it'll run from May 7th to May 28th. Your silent auction is a different kind of auction as it features experiences and services. Of course, our primary goal is to raise money, but our silent auction allows opportunities to connect with others in your community through shared experiences. Examples of an experience or service might include a games night, French picnic, or having someone detail your car, all of which sound wonderful. We need you to donate your experience and services, and we need a couple volunteers to help set up on Sundays in May. So please ask Gillian Redfern or in Houston Hall after services. Did I say that right? After services for questions for you to offer up your experience and your services. She can be reached at, and there's an email address that none of you will write down, but you know where to reach her, right? And then in 2 weeks, the weekend of March, the weekend of March 31st and April 2nd, there will be 2 very special UU gatherings here in Austin. First, Drum will be here. Drum is Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries, and they will hold their all-ages regional retreat for UUs of color at Wildflower. Meanwhile, here at First UU, we will host the White Allies group, which is called Allies for Racial Equity, in their corresponding gatherings. So the gatherings will happen, one here and one at Wildfire. Please see drum.org, which is D-R-U-U-M-M, .org, and UUR.org for all the info and registration, or talk to Reverend Aaron after the services. And I think I've got them all, and it's time to extinguish our chalice, right? Thank you, Peter. At this point, in our service, we extinguish our chalice, and we do that together. I invite you to read the chalice extinguishing words with us. The benediction is usually something given by the minister or the preacher to the congregation, but this time I would like us to give it to each other. So if you would be so kind as to take your hymnals out, and we're going to read number 602 together. While you do that, let me tell you, if there is only one reading that you remember from this hymnal, this is the reading. This, to me, is the most significant piece of literature in your hymnal. Amongst all the beauty and all the wonder in your hymnal, this to me tells the story of what Unitarian Universalism is all about. And I would like you to read it with me if you feel so inclined. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace at home. And if there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Go forward, my friends, knowing the role you play in the communities in which you are a part, and go forward knowing the role that those communities play in you. Be well, and thank you very much for having me here today, and we will now listen to the postlude.